Hello friends, tonight we're going to take a look at the Beretta 92S. It's the surplus pistol of the moment, but what the hell is it actually? I'm hearing a lot of folks in videos and articles describing this gun as essentially a 92FS or M9 with a heel magazine release. That is kind of true, but there are more differences than are immediately apparent. But first, some history. Beretta is a very old company, the oldest gun company, one of the oldest companies of any kind. In the early 1970s, though, Beretta didn't really have a modern double-stack 9mm service pistol. They made assorted other fantastic guns, including a single-stack 9mm of considerable size, the 951, which you've probably seen, but nothing quite like this. And at the time, the CZ75 was very alluring to the West, where it was not widely available, and Beretta decided to follow them in 1976 with the 92. The original 92 looked more like the S model here, only it had a safety on the frame rather than the decocker on the slide. And it didn't have any decocking mechanism, actually. The 92 borrows the direct feed greatness from the Beretta 84. Direct feed means that the magazine presents the bullet directly to the chamber, and the slide just pushes it in. Now, the bullet doesn't have to take a ride up the feed ramp roller coaster into the chamber like you see on Glocks and HKs and pretty much every other gun any of us own these days. In fact, you can see that there. The magazine just lines the bullet right up with the chamber. Very convenient. And we can also take a look at the handy-dandy decocking mechanism. But the 84 is a blowback gun, and 9mm is a little too stout for such a mechanism. So the falling block of the Walther P38 was borrowed, and bam, you have one of the most reliable pistols ever. Law enforcement agencies at the time were quite taken with the 92, but they wanted to decock it. And at the time, if you wanted to decock the original 92, you had to manually lower the hammer on a live round, which, as you can imagine, is not a super great idea. So they moved the safety to the slide and added a decocking feature. I've heard folks say that they are not fond of the controls being up there on the slide, but having spent an awful lot of time inside Berettas, they likely added the decocking mechanism to the slide because there isn't a good way to put it in the frame without drastically altering the design. That's really the best place for it. And I hear you saying, but it's the worst part of the Beretta. Why not alter the design? I'll tell you this, though you may not like where it is, the Beretta decocker is one of the safest around and essentially can't fail. There really isn't a better decocking mechanism that I'm aware of, and let me show you why that is. You see the back of your firing pin there where the hammer hits it. Watch what happens when I roll the decocker down. Yeah, you see that? The whole mechanism is rolled back up into the gun, away from the hammer. It actually breaks the path of the firing pin, so there's no way the hammer can hit it and touch off that round. It's very nice. It's my favorite. Also, you can see that these early 92s were blued rather than the later Bruneton finish. Mine is very shiny and a great pleasure to look upon. Just for reference, here is what the Bruneton finish looks like. Still certainly attractive, but there's something about that 1970s blued finish here. It's very charming. The magazine release is here at the heel, as you probably already know, as is common for European pistols of the era. Folks always note that this arrangement is common as though that excuses it. While I understand why it was done, and Italian police were certainly fond of it from what I understand, that doesn't make it good. The later location of the magazine release certainly makes the pistol easier to use. Also noteworthy, this gun has no firing pin safety, so do keep that in mind, and we will look at what that looks like inside. So you've probably seen online, there are a lot of different retailers that you can purchase these surplus 92S pistols from. Are they all the same? No. and you need to know this as you shop for one. The ones that you'll see on sale at Classic and AIM and a lot of those other places vary quite widely. Rumor has it that these guns were reconditioned by Beretta before being imported into the United States, and from the pictures and videos that I've seen, that's likely true, or somebody reconditioned them anyway. You'll see that some of them have newer barrels or newer locking blocks, and that makes a lot of sense. These early Beretta locking blocks just weren't as sturdy as the ones that Beretta makes these days and had to be replaced a bit more frequently. If your barrel looks practically new, it probably is a newer replacement. That's pretty self-explanatory. Some of these appear to have slides that are Brunaton rather than blued. That could either mean that they are newer guns, newer slides, or that they were sent back to Beretta sometime after they switched to Brunaton and were refinished then. And that makes sense. Brunaton appeared sometime in the mid-1980s. I've also seen some of these that have the newer grips that look almost like these, only they're cut out down here for the heel magazine release. Those are kind of cool, but I like these crazy-looking ones here. These almost look like they're Bakelite or something like that. So let's take a look at the inside of the 92S. But how do we get inside? Well, you are going to press this button here, and then rotate this lever down at the same time, and bam, the slide pops right off. Looking inside the slide, you can see that there's a lot of hand fitting, and that generally the quality is just insanely good. This pistol is of absurdly good quality for something made in 1976, just a police service pistol. Pretty amazing. But there have been some changes to these over the years. So this early locking block, it wore out sooner than the military and various agencies would like it to, so that's been updated. Also, you don't see the usual plunger anywhere in here, the firing pin block safety that you usually see, do you? So let's take a look at a newer Beretta. My 92A1 comes apart in much the same way. Press the button, rotate the lever down. Yes, there we go. So what is a firing pin safety? Well, it's just a little plunger that's going to block the firing pin from going forward unless you have pulled the trigger intentionally. It makes it so that the firing pin isn't going to move forward and impact the primer if you, let's say, drop the gun. You can imagine you don't want that to happen. So this little plunger here, which we can see moving there, is pushed up and out of the way of the firing pin by this little arm right here. See that thing move up and down with the trigger? Yeah. So I will say, having the firing pin safety does cause the trigger to feel different. The 92A1, while it has one of the best triggers around, it still isn't as good as the 92S. At the same time, though, I'm not saying that the 92S is much less safe because it doesn't have one. I really don't know. I haven't dropped either one of these, and I really don't think you should drop either one of them intentionally. But the firing pin on the 92S can go forward if you drop it and impact the back of a primer. So keep that in mind. All right, let's put the 92A1 back together. With this one, you just put the slide back on, and this arm automatically rotates up. The 92S, however, is a little bit harder to get back together, and you have to lock the slide open and push that up, just like other slightly earlier Berettas. So here, as we pull the trigger, you can see that firing pin safety move up and out of the way. You can also see that though this has a great trigger, look at this. Yeah, it is crisper. It definitely is. So how does it shoot? Well, it shoots like an old gun, but one of the best old guns, and by that I mean it has an amazing trigger, it's a pleasure to pull it, but the sights are absolutely lousy. They are really, really bad. Look at these things. They are incredibly tiny. The sights look like they're off of a Makarov or something. In fact, one of the Makarovs I shot recently had way better sights than this thing. So it's really funny to see those sights paired with this really, really amazing trigger. Even for 1976, these are really bad, to the point that I wouldn't even consider this gun a defensive option at all. So let's imagine that we're only going to shoot this pistol for pleasure. With that in mind, this is a lovely gun. The sights add an additional challenge at ranges past 15 yards. You'll really, really test yourself. And this trigger, it's like a fine custom pistol. I'm reticent to say what I'm about to say, but here goes anyway. This is the best double action, single action trigger of any gun that I have ever owned. Look at this. The double action pull is very smooth. And you can kind of stage it there like a revolver trigger. Yeah. In fact, it feels like a really good revolver double action. And the single action pull is insanely crisp. Got a little take up, nearly effortless and very smooth, and then you hit a very pronounced and even audible wall. Very firm. There's no creep. Apply a little more pressure, and you're rewarded with a crisp snap that is almost as clean as a custom 1911. Once more. Wow. And look at this reset. How short is that? Oh yeah, and you're probably noticing I'm having a little bit of trouble manipulating the slide. These serrations are not very deep, and they're really hard for me to grab. And also, I typically manipulate Berettas by pushing on that cut in the front. This is the bluing is so slick that doesn't really work this time around. So it kind of sucks, but it's okay. That trigger's amazing. Let's look at that reset once more. Oh yeah, that's really, really, really nice. I wish the grips weren't so slick. When my hands start to sweat, the gun feels very slippery. It really just feels slippery all the time. I'm not a huge fan of that. I guess it means that there aren't going to be any texturing to irritate your sensitive little hands, but at the same time, there needs to be something to grip. This is just like, I don't know, trying to hold on to a piece of glass or something. It's pretty tough. I don't know, is a piece of glass slick? I don't know, it's like holding on to something slick. Just use your imagination there. So what about the heel magazine release? I thought this would be a real impediment with this gun, much more than the sights or anything else. I thought this was going to be the real hang-up for me. But this is the best heel release that I know of. You hit the button, and it comes right out. And in fact, yeah, these are drop-free, which you don't normally see with heel releases. So the way you're supposed to use this is just use it to kind of drop the magazine into your support hand, like so. Once more. So yeah, as heel releases go, this one is really not bad at all. Also, these magazines are very nicely blued. Really nice. Yeah, so if this button were in a different place, these magazines would be completely drop-free. Changing the magazine on this gun probably takes 30% longer than a standard magazine change on a more modern Beretta. It's not great, but it's not world-ending. Those sights, though, they are really bad. Those do prevent this from being a serious defensive gun. I can't overstate that. Even for the era, these are rough. So, should you buy a 92S? It depends on what you're going to do with it. I've heard quite a few reviewers say, if you've been on the fence about buying a Beretta 92, now you can have one for $250 less. But that's not quite true. This is very different from this. The 92A1 is a modern combat pistol with modern sights and modern controls. This thing had some stuff about it that was really awkward in 1976. There's a reason that this control layout was changed, as were the sights. So, you're probably asking, then why do you have the gun, you stupid idiot? Yeah, I hear you yelling that. I collect Berettas, so it makes sense for me to have it. If you don't collect Berettas, but you're looking for something interesting and exciting to take to the range, this would be an interesting candidate for you as well. But there are lots of surplus pistols with really small, terrible sights and weird controls. However, this is by far the best of the lot. This beats the shit out of that Star 1911 thingy, or a Makarov, or a Tokarev, or something like that. So despite the sort of strange ergonomic choices, this gun is incredibly well made, stunningly so, far beyond my expectations. They don't really make guns like this anymore with this much hand fitting and this beautiful bluing for anywhere close to this price point. Most of the time these are going for like, oh, I hate talking price, but they're like between, I think, $275 and $350 or something like that. And they're going to go up from here. As with all surplus stuff, people are going to find out that they're great if they haven't already, and then they're going to massively go up in value. So that's the way it is. So the 92S is, from nearly any standpoint, the finest surplus pistol that you can purchase cheaply of the current crop offered by the usual suspects, and for that, it deserves your attention. Final thoughts. With practicality and usefulness out of the way, you need to know this gun is really, really fun to shoot. When the sun is shining bright, the sights aren't so bad, and that trigger pull will make you shoot groups that'll make you feel pretty good about yourself. It even makes me feel good about myself, and that's pretty hard to do. So I find myself looking forward simply to looking at this pistol, to marvel at the craftsmanship and beauty, and also to marvel at what this pistol became later. It's no secret that I believe the 92 designed to be the finest pistol ever produced. My 92A1 here has shot just shy of 10,000 rounds without a malfunction. But I just feel a certain fondness for 92s. They give me the warm fuzzies, and it doesn't hurt that they're practically indestructible. This gun marks the beginning of a pistol that would later be adopted by the U.S. military, a gun that served from 1985 until very recently, and even then, I'm sure they didn't just round them all up all at once. This gun is a critical and kind of weird piece of firearms history, and if you like Berettas, you really need to have one. But if you don't have a Beretta at all, this is not the one to buy. Buy a 92FS, or better yet, a 92A1 or M9A3 first. Experience the best that Beretta has to offer, and then pick up an oddity like the 92S. The Beretta is a classic, and I hope that you enjoy the 92s as much as I do. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you all have a wonderful evening. Good night.